I hadn't been able to reach my son for an entire week. Finally, I made the decision to drive straight to his house in Columbus, Ohio. That's where I found Garrett, my 10-year-old grandson, huddled deep inside the bedroom closet, barely clinging to life after 7 agonizing days alone. His weak whisper froze every drop of blood in my veins. "Grandpa," I heard Mommy's voice. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the heaviest truths. What Garrett witnessed on that violent, stormy night would soon uncover a cold-blooded plot, where a mother's love proved weaker than the temptation of $800,000. Justice, I discovered, often arrives from the most unexpected corners, and the unbreakable bond of family will always triumph over betrayal. Before I share the terrifying details of that week filled with unanswered calls, please take a moment to subscribe and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support allows us to keep bringing you powerful stories of justice and the enduring strength of family love. What I'm about to tell you happened just 7 months ago, yet it feels like an entire lifetime has passed. It all started on a perfectly ordinary Wednesday morning, when my usual weekly phone call with my son never came. Every Wednesday at 8:30 sharp, my phone would ring with Jacob calling to check in, or I would dial him first. We'd kept this routine for years, ever since little Garrett was born 10 years ago. Jacob was always dependable that way, especially after his bitter divorce 4 months earlier. Site supervisor for a major construction firm. Single dad doing everything possible to hold his world together for his boy. Those Wednesday calls were sacred, like the family barbecues we used to have when his mother was still with us. That particular Wednesday, I sat at my kitchen table in Dayton, Ohio, with my coffee getting cold and the newspaper untouched, waiting for the phone to ring. 9 o'clock came and went. By 9:45, I grabbed my old landline phone. Yes, I still use one. Don't judge me. And dialed his number. Straight to voicemail. "You've reached Jacob Thompson. Leave a message, and I'll get back to you." "Hey, son. It's Dad. Just checking in like always. Call me when you can." Construction schedules could be chaotic. Early starts, sudden emergencies, equipment failures. I knew that from my 35 years as a master mechanic. But Jacob always called back within a couple hours, no matter what. By evening, nothing. I tried again around Garrett's bedtime. Straight to voicemail again. This time worry crept into my voice. "Jacob, it's your old man again. Just want to make sure you and Garrett are okay. Call me, son." Thursday brought more silence. I called at 6 in the morning, hoping to catch him before he left for the site. Nothing. The knot in my stomach tightened like a rusted bolt refusing to turn. That same gut feeling I'd get when an engine made noises that spelled expensive repairs ahead. Friday morning, I phoned his construction company, Mike Reynolds, his superintendent. Sounded genuinely surprised. "Jacob hasn't shown up since last Friday. Thought maybe he caught that bad flu going around. You know how reliable he is. Robert never misses a day without calling in. Last Friday, that meant Jacob had been missing from work for nearly a week. And here we were hitting Saturday. That knot in my gut turned into a cold, hard fist. Saturday night, I barely slept. I tried calling Sarah's old number. Disconnected. Called Garrett's school. Absent all week with no explanation from a parent. By Sunday morning, I couldn't wait another minute. At 66 years old, I packed an overnight bag like I was heading into war extra clothes, heart medication, and the spare key Jacob had given me years ago. The 4-hour drive from Dayton to Columbus felt endless. My old Ford pickup rumbled down the interstate while my mind raced through every possible scenario. Maybe Jacob took Garrett on an impromptu fishing trip. Maybe there was a family emergency on Sarah's side. Maybe his phone died and he hadn't noticed. But that mechanic's instinct, the one that never failed me in 35 years of diagnosing engines, screamed that something was horribly wrong. Jacob wasn't the type to vanish without a word. He was the kind of father who called if he was 5 minutes late picking Garrett up from school. As I pulled into his quiet subdivision in the suburbs of Columbus, hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white, I tried to prepare myself for whatever waited inside. 35 years fixing broken machines had taught me one truth. Sometimes the worst damage hides beneath a perfectly normal surface. Nothing could have prepared me for what I found in that silent house. Jacob's silver pickup sat in the driveway, untouched for days. A light coating of November frost on the windshield. Newspapers stacked up on the porch like forgotten promises. From the outside, everything looked ordinary beige siding, green shutters, the kind of house that said, "Happy family lives here." But my trained eye noticed what others might miss. I knocked hard, rang the doorbell repeatedly. Nothing. The silence pressed against my eardrums, unnatural for a home that should have a 10-year-old boy bouncing off the walls. I tried the front door handle. Unlocked. That stopped me colder than the November air. Jacob was paranoid about security since the divorce. He double-checked every lock, every night. "Jacob Garrett, it's Grandpa." My voice echoed through empty rooms. The living room made my heart seize. The coffee table sat at a strange angle, one corner dented. A floor lamp lay toppled behind the couch. Not obvious destruction, but wrong. Someone had tried to straighten things up in a hurry and missed the details. My mechanic's eye caught every imperfection. I moved through the house room by room. Kitchen counters covered with dirty dishes. Coffee pot still plugged in with burnt sludge at the bottom. Jacob's home office had papers scattered everywhere. Desk chair pushed back like someone leapt up suddenly. "Jacob Garrett, your old man's here," I called louder, climbing the stairs with legs that felt like lead. His bedroom looked recently slept in bed unmade. Work boots kicked off by the dresser, not like the neat freak Jacob I raised. My heart hammered against my ribs as I approached Garrett's room. "Garrett, Buddy Grandpa brought those new car magazines you wanted." I pushed open the door. Toys scattered across the floor, bed unmade, posters of race cars on the walls. Empty, abandoned. I was about to turn away when I heard it. A faint scratching sound, like small fingers against wood. I froze, straining to listen. There it was again, coming from the closet. "Garrett, you in there, champ?" A weak tapping answered. Deliberate, desperate. Someone was inside. My hands trembled as I slid open the closet door. Behind hanging winter coats and piled blankets, curled into the darkest corner, was Garrett, my grandson, barely conscious, clutching his favorite toy truck to his chest like a lifeline, his lips cracked and bleeding, eyes sunken, skin burning with fever. But when he saw me, the weakest smile crossed his face. "Grandpa." "Garrett. Oh, Lord. It's okay now. You're safe." I dropped to my knees, old joints screaming, and gently touched his forehead. Hot as fire, dangerously dehydrated. How long had he been trapped here? Smart boy had survived on whatever he could reach, empty juice pouches. Crushed granola bars scattered around him like evidence of his fight to live. "Where's Daddy?" he whispered, voice barely audible. The question hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I didn't have an answer. "We're going to find him, sweetheart." But first, we get you to a doctor. I lifted Garrett carefully, his body light as a bird with broken wings, reeking of sweat and fear and days without a bath. With Garrett cradled against my chest, I fumbled for my cell phone. My fingers shook so badly I could barely dial. 911, what is your emergency? My grandson is alive, but barely, and my son. Something terrible has happened here. I rattled off the address in Columbus while Garrett buried his face in my shoulder, his breathing shallow but steady. Whatever had happened on this house, Garrett had survived it. But as I held my grandson waiting for the ambulance, one horrifying question echoed through my mind. If Garrett had been hiding in that closet for 7 days, where in God's name was Jacob? The paramedics worked with calm urgency, starting IV fluids in Garrett's thin arm, placing an oxygen mask over his small face. He looked so fragile on that stretcher, but his eyes never left mine. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, possible infection, the lead paramedic reported. 10-year-old male, conscious but critical, ETA to Nationwide Children's Hospital, 10 minutes. I rode in the ambulance holding Garrett's hand, every siren wail piercing my soul. Every bump in the road made him wince, but he squeezed my fingers whenever I started to let go. Smart kid. He knew I wasn't leaving his side. The emergency room erupted into organized chaos the moment we arrived. Doctors shouting orders, nurses flying between rooms, machines beeping frantically. They wheeled Garrett behind privacy curtains before I could follow. Sir, we need information. A young nurse with gentle eyes guided me to a chair. Are you the father? Grandfather. Robert Thompson. His father is missing. The word tasted like ash. She took notes while I provided everything: Garrett's allergies, insurance details, medical history. My hands shook signing forms, the reality crashing over me like a tidal wave. Garrett was safe now, but Jacob was still gone. The boy is stable, Doctor, Martinez told me 2 hours later, removing his gloves. He'll recover physically. Remarkable survival for a 10-year-old alone that long. He's a fighter. Before I could respond, a tall man in a wrinkled suit approached. Detective Harris, Columbus PD, Mr. Thompson. I understand you reported your son missing. I recounted everything: the missed calls, the week of silence, finding Garrett in the closet. Detective Harris took careful notes. Any reason Jacob might have left town voluntarily? Work problems, relationship issues? Jacob would never abandon Garrett. Never. Something happened to him. My voice cracked with certainty born of 35 years of reading situations correctly. We'll treat this seriously. Mr. Thompson, can I speak with the boy? He's been through hell. Please be gentle. Garrett's hospital room glowed with harsh fluorescent lights, monitors beeping steadily. When he saw me, his face lit up with the first real smile I'd seen. Grandpa, you stayed. Always champ, not going anywhere. Detective Harris pulled up a child-sized chair. Garrett, I'm Detective Harris. I'm trying to find your dad. Can you tell me the last time you saw him? Garrett's hand found mine under the blanket, squeezing tight. It was nighttime, he whispered. There was yelling, really loud yelling. My blood turned to ice water. Yelling, Garrett's grip tightened until his knuckles went white. Grandpa, I heard scary voices, Mommy's voice, and a man. They were fighting with Daddy. The words hung in the sterile air like poison gas. Detective Harris leaned forward carefully. Garrett, can you tell us more about those voices? But Garrett had retreated into himself, exhausted from even this small effort. Within minutes, he drifted into uneasy sleep, still clutching my hand like a lifeline. In the hallway, Detective Harris's expression was grim. That boy may be our only witness, but he's traumatized. We'll need to proceed carefully. He's 10 years old, I growled. He hid in a closet for 7 days. I understand. I'm bringing in Dr. Laura Chen. She's our best child psychologist for trauma cases. She knows how to talk to kids without breaking them. That night, I slept in the vinyl chair beside Garrett's bed, waking every time he stirred or cried out in his sleep. Nurses checked his IV regularly, monitoring his recovery. By morning, color had returned to his cheeks, and he managed a few bites of hospital jello. Dr. Chen arrived at 9 with a bag of art supplies and the patient warmth of someone who'd spent decades earning children's trust. Hi, Garrett. I'm Miss Laura. Your grandpa says you're the bravest kid he's ever met. Garrett glanced at me, then back at her, still holding his toy truck. Can you show me how you stayed safe in your hiding spot? She asked gently, spreading paper and markers. So, Daddy told me to hide in the closet and not come out until he called my name, Garrett said, voice stronger now. I had emergency snacks in my secret box: granola bars, fruit gummies, 3 water bottles. When those ran out, I crawled to the bathroom at night for sink water. I made a bed with my sleeping bag and talked to Lightning McQueen every day. He held up the toy truck. I waited for Daddy to call me out, but he never did. Doctor. Chen nodded encouragingly. You were so smart and brave. Garrett, can you tell me about the scary voices you heard? Garrett began drawing a small figure in a dark box. It was Sunday night, thunderstorming super bad. I was playing Fortnite when the doorbell kept ringing. Daddy looked scared and told me to hide right now. I ran to my closet and buried myself under blankets. Detective Harris had slipped in quietly. Then I heard people come inside. Garrett continued, crayon pressing harder. 2 people, Mommy and a man with a really deep voice. Mommy was screaming at Daddy about money. She said he owed her everything. The man said mean things. Then there was crashing and shouting and... His voice broke. Then everything got really quiet. Too quiet. I wanted to find Daddy, but I was too scared. I kept waiting and waiting. Detective Harris stepped closer. Garrett, are you sure it was your mommy's voice? I know Mommy's voice anywhere, he said firmly. She called the man Kyle. They said something about insurance money. Detective Harris met my eyes with grim understanding. Mr. Thompson, this just became a homicide investigation. We'll be issuing warrants for Sarah Mitchell and Kyle Brennan. In the hallway, Detective Harris opened his folder. There's more. We pulled Jacob's financial records. There's a life insurance policy for $800,000, taken out when Garrett was born. Sarah is still listed as sole beneficiary. After their divorce 4 months ago, Jacob never updated it. $800,000. Enough to kill for. Why didn't he change it? I asked, though I already knew. His co-workers said he'd been meaning to, kept saying he'd handled the paperwork after things settled post-divorce. Sarah helped him organize all their finances during marriage. She knew exactly what she stood to gain. 2 days later, Detective Harris brought me back to Jacob's house. Yellow crime scene tape fluttered in the wind like warning flags. The forensics team had finished their work, under luminol. The truth glowed blue blood spatter on the living room wall, a large pool near the coffee table's sharp corner. Your son fought hard, Detective Harris said quietly. Pattern suggests he was shoved, fell backward, struck his head. Massive trauma. I stared at the chalk outline where my boy had died. My hands clenched into fists hard enough to creak. Jacob, my responsible, loving son, murdered in his own home for insurance money. We visited Jacob's construction site next. Mike Reynolds and the crew painted a picture of a devoted father, struggling, but never complaining. Jacob mentioned Sarah got heavy into crypto trading after the separation. Mike told me. Lost over $100,000. Kept asking Jacob to bail her out. He helped twice, maybe $60,000 total. But the third time he said no, couldn't keep bleeding money with Garrett to support. The pieces clicked together like perfectly aligned gears. Sarah's gambling losses, Jacob's refusal to enable her, the divorce, the untouched insurance policy, 800,000 reasons to make Jacob disappear. Back at the station, Detective Harris showed me neighbor security footage, a dark sedan parked outside Jacob's house Sunday night during the storm. We're running the partial plate, and Mrs. Jenkins across the street saw more than she initially admitted. The elderly neighbor wrung her hands. I saw 2 people leaving around 11. Thought it was family business. Should have called police. Don't blame yourself, I told her, though guilt gnawed at me too. If I'd driven down sooner. Detective Harris's phone buzzed. His eyes widened. We got a hit. Car belongs to Kyle Brennan, 37. Registered crypto investment advisor. Address in Cleveland. Sarah's new boyfriend. They picked up Kyle Brennan that afternoon at his rundown apartment. Detective Harris called me from the scene. He's not what I expected. Nervous wreck. More follower than mastermind. Through the one-way glass, Kyle looked ordinary average build, receding hairline, shaking hands. His confession spilled out like water from a broken dam. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. Sarah said it would be simple. Just pressure Jacob into transferring crypto he'd supposedly hidden. She showed me trading records. Huge losses. Claimed Jacob stole from their joint accounts during divorce. Kyle wiped sweat from his face. When we got there, she went crazy about insurance money instead. Started screaming about everything Jacob owed her for supporting his career. What happened when Jacob refused? Detective Harris pressed. Kyle's voice dropped. Sarah shoved him hard. I tried to stop her, but Jacob stumbled, hit his head on that table corner. Blood everywhere. Sarah panicked, said we had to make him disappear or we'd both rot in prison. She knew about the insurance, said it would solve everything. She made me help move the body to a storage unit she rented under a fake name. Where is my son's body? Mr. Brennan. Storage star on Route 33, Unit 412, please. She manipulated me. I thought we were just scaring him. They found Jacob wrapped in tarps in that storage unit, hidden behind old furniture. Hearing it confirmed broke something inside me that would never fully heal. What about Sarah? She's been jumping motels, paying cash, but she slipped up, called her cousin in Atlanta from a burner phone. Detective Harris's team tracked her to a Super 8 off I-70. By the time they arrived, she'd vanished. But desperation makes people careless. At 3:15 that afternoon, they caught her at the Columbus Greyhound station, trying to board a bus to Miami with fake documents. Sarah Johnson, complete with new ID and dyed brown hair cut short and uneven. I drove downtown to see her myself. Through the police cruiser window, Sarah looked broken dark circles under bloodshot eyes, clothes rumpled from days on the run. For one brief moment when she saw me, I glimpsed the young woman Jacob had loved. Then her face hardened into defiance. She had $2,000 cash, 3 fake identity sets, and a one-way ticket south. This wasn't spontaneous, Detective Harris told me. She's been planning escape routes for weeks, premeditated all the way. At the station, I watched Sarah's interrogation through the glass. Unlike Kyle's immediate breakdown, Sarah tried to control the narrative. It was Kyle's idea. I just wanted to talk about money Jacob owed me from our marriage. Detective Harris slid crime scene photos across the table. Kyle says you masterminded everything. Says you knew about the $800,000 policy. Says you needed money to cover massive crypto losses. Sarah's mask began cracking. Jacob destroyed my life. I worked nights so he could get his contractor license when he left. He left me drowning in debt. So you drowned him instead? Detective Harris asked coldly. What about your son Garrett? Spent 7 days thinking his father abandoned him. That broke her. Sarah crumpled, sobbing. Garrett was supposed to be with Robert that week. Jacob told me he was staying with his grandfather. If I'd known he was home. She couldn't finish through her tears. But her tears brought me no comfort. Jacob was still dead. Garrett was still traumatized. Our family was still destroyed. Both Sarah and Kyle were charged with first-degree murder. Evidence was overwhelming. Kyle's confession, the storage unit discovery, Garrett's testimony, financial records showing Sarah's desperation, her attempted flight. The prosecutor sought life without parole. Garrett made remarkable physical recovery. Dr. Chen said his resilience was extraordinary, but nightmares came nightly. Why did Mommy hurt Daddy? He'd ask during therapy. How do you explain greed to a 10-year-old? Grown-ups sometimes make terrible choices when they're scared about money. I'd say, your mom owed dangerous people a lot of money and thought hurting Daddy was the only way out. But that's never okay. She's going to prison for a very long time. Custody transfer was straightforward. I became Garrett's legal guardian, moving him to my home in Dayton. 8 months later, using the very insurance money that cost Jacob his life. I bought a house near Garrett's new school, set up a college fund, paid for intensive therapy. The trial was packed with local media. Jacob's construction crew filled the gallery in support. Garrett took the stand like a soldier, voice clear as he recounted hiding in the closet, hearing his mother's rage, the silence that followed. Jurors cried openly when he said, I waited 7 days for Daddy to call my name like he promised, but he never did. Kyle testified against Sarah for a reduced sentence. She planned everything. He told the jury, knew about the insurance, knew she was still beneficiary, told me Jacob stole crypto from her. All lies. She needed money to cover losses over $200,000. The jury deliberated just 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sarah received life without parole. Kyle got 30 years. As the verdict was read, I felt Jacob's presence in that courtroom. Justice served. But my son was still gone. 9 months later, Garrett and I have found our new rhythm. I taught him to change oil in my pickup, just like I taught Jacob decades ago. His small hands gripped the wrench as grease smudged his cheeks. Grandpa, he said with a grin, do you think Daddy would be proud of me? Son, I answered, ruffling his hair. Your daddy is smiling down right now, proud as can be, in that moment. With Garrett's laughter filling my garage, I knew we'd make it. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but we had each other. Family love had survived the ultimate betrayal. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening to our story. Never take your loved ones for granted. Greed can destroy everything in an instant, but love endures forever. Justice prevails when good people fight for it, and healing is possible even after the darkest nights. Garrett still asks about his father, and I share stories of the wonderful man Jacob was. Those memories keep him alive in our hearts. The insurance money Sarah killed for now funds Garrett's future, his education, his therapy, our new beginning. There's bitter justice in that, but also hope. Something beautiful grew from something terrible. Sometimes when Garrett laughs or shows kindness to others, I see Jacob in him. Love truly does conquer all. God guided me to that house exactly when Garrett needed me most. Without divine timing, my grandson might not have survived those 7 terrible days. These grandfather stories remind us that we're called to step up when tragedy strikes. At 66, I never imagined raising another child. But God had bigger plans. He gave me strength to seek justice and wisdom to help Garrett heal. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember the power of family love. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from.